Well, hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of We Watch Shudder. My name is JD. Who's here with me today?
It's Michelle.
It's Michelle. There she is, Miss Michelica. I don't. That's the best I can do for you this week.
Good job. Yep.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Guys, we talk about movies here on We Watch Shudder. More specifically, we talk about horror movies. Very specifically, we talk about horror movies from the service Shudder. And very specifically, we talk about original and exclusive releases from the horror streaming service Shudder. Michelle!
Whoa, that's so much thought.
So many layers
podcast.
of specificity.
Yeah, what was your question?
Oh, my question was, what is the Shudder original and or exclusive that we're talking about this week?
This is Good Madam this week, and it is a Shudder original.
It is called Good Madam, a Shudder original. That's what she just said. So, like we do, I'm not going to forget this week. I will read to you the description of the film straight from the Shudder website, exactly how they or the movie makers or whoever gets to decide how to write up these things decided to sell this movie to us. Here we go. Good Madam, directed by Jenna Cato Bass. CD, a single mother, is forced to move in with her estranged mother, Mavis, a live-in domestic worker caring obsessively for her catatonic white madam. As CD tries to heal her family, however, a sinister specter begins to stir. A Shudder original. Michelle!
Yes.
Hit us with them oh-so-popular spoiler-free thoughts.
Awesome. Okay, my thoughts that have no spoilers is, I have mixed feelings about a lot of the things going on here. I thought I figured out the ending really quickly, and then that thought was wrong. And then I thought I figured out the ending again, and that thought was wrong. And then the ending happened, and I had to go back and rewatch to make sure I was positive that they were ending it the way that they did. So it's kind of a weird movie. It made me kind of uncomfortable, but that's okay because I think it has a message. But it wasn't really so much a horror film. There wasn't there's a lot of horrifying concepts, I guess. In the
It's got a little bit of the spookies.
A little bit, but it's
right.
Also, I was kind of interested in the family drama aspect of it, and I wasn't really scared. There's definitely a lot of brushy things that I don't like in this movie though. So I would say it's okay. If I'm ever in the mood for a horror movie, I'm not going to recommend this. If I'm ever in the mood for a drama, I'm not really going to recommend this. It was just kind of fine and tepid. So I'll give it a 2.5.
Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. I'll be honest with you. I'm not entirely certain at this point that I even fully understood this movie. And I want to be fair. I don't know how much of that is because let me also be blunt and honest. My personal socio-political literacy about post-apartheid South Africa is basically non-existent, right? I don't really know a lot about what's going on there and what it's like. So I think there might be at least some things that I lost here because I just don't have the cultural frames of reference for it, perhaps.
Same.
But, yeah, I mean, there's some cool visuals going on here, some interesting things to look at. Also some, frankly, and we'll talk about it, some potentially problematic things to look at in this movie. I find it very interesting that this is a movie that seems like it's trying to say something about the power dynamics of white people over not white people, but it was directed by a white person. I don't know how.
I've got
I don't
thoughts.
know how good of an idea that was. I can definitely tell. At least I think I have an idea of what it thought it was doing. But I don't. Maybe I don't get it at all. I couldn't. This is a definitive for me two skull movie if there ever was one. I I can't really say anything incredibly bad about it personally, and there were some little things about it that I thought were really cool, but overall, it just didn't quite play for me.
Yep, sounds good. So that makes
All
us
right,
an
guys.
average of
If you
2.25 skulls out of
so
five.
if that overwhelming review there made you think, "Oh man, I got to drop everything and go see this tepid piece of cinema," you're going to want to go do that now, cuz this is the part where we're going to start talking about why exactly this is a dyed in the wool two skull movie. Uh So yeah, I just like I really don't know. Obviously, I follow the basic plot, right? Like
Mhm.
this woman and her child have to go to live with her mom, and her mom's a caretaker for this old white lady. And things start to get creepy. There's a dog, but then the dog's been dead for 10 years or whatever, and there are these little elements of things coming in, sort of spooky things. Um, it turns out maybe she's some kind of witch who's like siphoning life out of people to extend her own life, but also keeping them alive to be her servants for forever. I don't know that I understood exactly what was happening, but I think I got the gist of it. How about you?
I think you and I caught equal amounts of gists from this movie. I knew that there were parts that obviously I don't know much about, like you said, post-apartheid South Africa. There
Right,
were just terms that I didn't know, and so I did give it a little bit of a curve in the sense that,
right.
I'm very removed from that. And I tend to do that when we watch these
Yeah.
international
I
movies because
yeah,
I know
and
that.
I think maybe a more clear and concise way of saying what I was trying to say is, I didn't have any problem understanding what was happening in this movie, but I
Mhm,
don't know that I really understand like what the themes were entirely that they were playing, or all
yeah.
the levels on which they function. Right?
Yeah, because that's some of the stuff where I think maybe people who understand this a lot more might have picked up on themes because
Mm-hmm.
I kept thinking that there were themes like you did, and then they didn't hit, and so I'm wondering like, did I miss the point or did they not write it correctly?
Yeah.
Because I did get curious, and this is one that I really wanted to go look up the reviews, and they are very hot and cold.
Oh
A
yeah.
lot of people love this. A lot of people despise it. A lot of people of different races feel very hot and cold about this, which is very interesting to me too.
Yeah, I
Um,
managed to
yeah.
read exactly one review before we sat down to record this because I literally just finished watching the film. It did happen to be a review done by a person of color, and whoa, it was really not positive.
Was that the half star from
From
Ebert
Mr.
and
Odie Henderson, yeah,
yes,
over
it
at,
was.
at
I read that one too.
RogerEbert.com. Yep. Oh
Yeah,
man,
he
he
does not seem to like any movies though.
no, and he
So
made some points about why he didn't like it.
yeah.
That very much made it clear to me that was like, oh, those are things I never even thought about while I was
Yep.
watching it. But oh shit, he makes some really good points.
No, I think that was one that I read as well because I like to go and find the very hot and cold ones.
Uh huh.
But some of the points, I guess we're in the spoiler section, so we can talk about it. That
Right.
he felt that it was dehumanizing, the way that the camera focused so much on removing their faces and just focusing on the scrubbing. And I picked up on that, but I did so in the way that, yes, this is supposed to be dehumanizing, that they are just relegated to being servants and not even human beings. So I think I disagreed with some of those points because I think he thought that
Well,
we missed that,
I
but I
think
picked up on it.
no. Well, no, and I
Yeah.
don't know that he thinks we necessarily missed that.
Hmm.
But what I picked up from the review as I was reading it is it seems like maybe also crucial to a lot of those elements is they're done in a movie that was not just directed but photographed by a white person.
Oh, yes. No,
Right?
I
Like
there's a lot of things I
that's
agree with
like
there.
and
Yes.
I get that, right? I look, I'll
Hmm.
be honest with you, foolishly, I watched this entire film assuming it had been made by people of color. And
And
I
see
don't know
that's
why I did that. Maybe just because of the characters on screen, and that's clearly like, maybe revealing something about me that I need to sit down and
mhm.
think about. But so I went through it, And once I learned that and I saw it, I was like, oh man, I could definitely at least, even if I didn't experience that, well, obviously I wouldn't experience that because it's not about me, right? And so like
Yeah.
I at least very much understood where he was coming from and why he felt that way for sure.
Yeah, I do find it interesting because cinematography was done by a white woman,
Uh-huh.
Jenna Cato Base,
Yep.
who also directed, but then it was written by how many people is this? 12?
12 people, and I
12
did, yeah,
people?
there were
Yeah.
12 people listed as writers on this film. Something I
Hmm.
did notice is that a lot, well, one of the writers is also the director, but
Hmm.
then several, the most of the people who were credited as writers on this film are also actors in this film. Either that or there
Yeah.
just happen to be a lot of very common names on those two lists. I have to believe they're the same people. And that makes me wonder if maybe, as we were talking about before we hit the record, I wonder how much of this was improvised. And maybe
Hmm.
that's why they get writing credits on this, is because a certain amount of it was just and because I don't know, there are moments in it that um, I don't even know how to explain why, but once I understood that, I was like, oh, so that's why this scene kind of felt this way.
Hmm.
It just kind of, they have a vibe to them that kind of feels a little improvisational. Uh, but saying that in the sense that I didn't recognize it while it was happening, it's kind of a revelation that came after the fact.
Yeah. No, I think I just have questions for how this movie was
What questions
created.
do you have?
Oh, I don't have questions that
Just
we'll
why?
answer today. Yeah, well, there's 12 writers, and I want to know who actually had the most input onto
Right.
that. I want to know if Jenna Cato Base mostly directed and did camera and didn't have feedback from other people, because this is clearly a movie where the majority is people of color and it is about racism. And I'm
Right.
curious if there was feedback given from the other 11 writers
Right.
on how to do this. But then, if that's the way that they did it, why are they not credited as partial cinematographers? Because clearly they're giving credits to everybody.
Right.
I just have a lot of questions so that I can truly break down. And I think I like, just more than a lot of movies, I'm curious how this was made and
Sure.
how I should feel about it, because
Right.
the way that it is made is definitely going to
Yeah.
change how I
And
feel. And it's weird. I don't feel like that with a lot of movies. This one I
right.
absolutely do.
And also like this very much is a movie where like much more so than other movies, and I think it's because of that element of recognizing
Hmm.
immediately that there are themes and ideas being played here or dealt with here that I don't necessarily have the most informed or experienced perspective on. I was
Exactly.
immediately like, okay, I need to go read reviews of this movies to have more educated than me people tell me what was happening here.
Yeah.
And so in that sense, I feel like this is a movie that almost indirectly is going to help me learn a lot of things and gain a lot of perspective on things. I don't know if that's necessarily going to be in this movie's favor, but
Yeah.
so there's that. It's just very curious how that all comes together here. I do want to talk about some of the things about it that I did like, and
Yeah.
again, I think she's a great photographer. I thought there were some fantastic images. I should say they. I don't. I There's this whole thing going on at work. I have friends at my new job, and there's a whole pronouns thing, and talking about just opening yourself up to things that you do. That
I
anyway.
saw many articles did refer as she, her, which is why I
Okay,
have been.
cool.
Yep.
So anyway, yeah, I just I thought some incredibly cool photography. The way they drop in some of those creepy faces just out of nowhere. The way it's just real flash editing. I thought that was really cool. I really enjoyed. This movie is is just like it's that level of slow pacing where it just
Hmm.
the grinding slowness of it eventually just starts to wear on you, but not necessarily in a bad way.
Hmm.
uh, I thought when they did hit the horror elements, they did a really good job. When the whole thing with the hand happens, I was like, oh shit, what's going on
Oh,
here?
it's
Yeah,
that toothbrush part that, like, oh
yeah,
God, that's a new fear of mine where I'm going to toothbrush myself to death. I don't like that at all. That's
yeah,
very
yeah.
uncomfortable.
It's there. So yeah, it definitely played those moments when it used them to its strengths. And so yeah, I just this is a movie that I don't. It feels like such a like a slightly pretentious thing to say, but this is a movie I'm not gonna feel comfortable saying I have a final opinion on until I do a lot of reading.
That's actually where I feel about it too, where I was
Which is
watching
kind of
this
why
and then
I
I was,
landed right in that sort of like two
yeah,
skull range, because I feel like that's frankly a nice safe spot, right?
yeah,
It's
because
like,
here's the thing. I saw the title and I went, oh, and then I watched the movie and I went, oh, and then I read some reviews and I went, oh, we have to talk
oh,
about this on the episode. And
yeah.
this is getting into a lot of subject matter that I am ignorant on, especially in South Africa.
Hmm.
I'm aware of that, but also like as a movie, how was it?
Yeah,
It's
and
just one of those that
yeah.
we haven't had to do this on the podcast where it really is exploring a
Hmm.
very deep issue that you and I do not have the connection
Yeah,
to
we don't
that we
really have
should
the
to
perspective on.
discuss.
But no, I like that this happened because it does
Mhm.
give us, it gives us an alternate sort of take on how we get to discuss the movie.
Yeah.
You know what I think we should do is I think, wait, is next week the double feature?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Okay, so next week, guys, we talked about it last week. We've got a special double feature episode coming up. We got not one but two movies being released.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what I think we should do, Michelle. This is an odd
Okay.
idea right off the top of my head, right in the
Oh
middle of the
no.
recording here. No,
Okay.
I
That can't
think
be bad.
no, I think what we should do
Mm-hmm.
is we have the double feature next week, but then I think the week after that we should do our normal episode, and then maybe we come back right at the end and we have like a little recap or a revisit where we talk about like some of the things that we read and some of the things that we learned from about this movie and different perspectives on it, and maybe touch back on some of our thoughts on it. What do you think of that?
You're giving me homework. I'm in my 30s, and you're like, hey, can you go do some research and cite your work and write it? But
Well,
no,
I mean, I'm not
I
saying
know,
like
I know.
super deep, I just figure we're both just as being the obsessive, nerdy movie people we are,
Yep.
we're probably going to end up reading a bunch of stuff about it anyway, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I am completely on board with doing a bonus episode
Sweet.
of two white people attempt to be woker and
We-
see how that goes.
Right. Right. Like,
Try to educate ourselves because yeah, I have a lot of questions about this, and it really here's my equivalent or whatever, like my comparison. Get Out, if that was made by a white woman instead
Right.
of Jordan Peele, I would feel very, very different
and
about it.
look, I got to
And
be
this
honest
feels
with you.
very Get Out. Yeah.
Yeah, and as I've been sitting here, and this again is maybe not necessarily problematic in the way I fear, but still is something that I need to understand why. I think a big part about why I went into this movie, assuming it was likely made by people of color, is because the movie poster looks like a fucking Jordan Peele movie poster. Like it looks
Absolutely.
like it's like that. Okay, that's them. That's Get Out. That's Nope.
Yep.
That's that. Like I
There's a
thought
lot
for
of
sure-
story in here that feels like Get
Yeah,
Out. There is
yeah,
so
and,
much where, especially the movie poster, it feels like Get Out.
Yeah, and I
It-
think, and it was foolish of me to just go in making those assumptions, but that's how it goes sometimes. So, I definitely think maybe watch the movie and see if it makes you think some things, and then go read some reviews. Maybe you guys have some thoughts about it too. But yeah, so we came out at what, a 2.25 skull average for the two of us.
2.25, and I am just doing my rating based on like as a movie without
Right,
any
guys.
of the things I know behind it, without
We-
any attempt to know.
We're gonna reserve the right to
anything.
change these scores once we learn a little bit more about what we might not have understood about this movie. I do want to remind everybody, we're doing a thing. We're sponsoring Time Bomb Pro Wrestling here in Fargo. They got an event at the Sanctuary Event Center coming up on August 4th. We Watch Shudder is an official sponsor of that event. We're going to be there on hand, both Michelle and I. They'll have some great wrestling. They've announced a couple of awesome matches. Some of you know indie wrestling, awesome. Some of you might not. We're going to see the Anarchist Eric Cannon versus Effie, which those names might mean something to you. They might not. I promise you that is going to be a hell of a fun 10, 15, 20 minutes. You don't want to miss that match. Also going to have Time Bomb Pro Wrestling champion Dominic Guarini is going to be in action defending the Time Bomb Pro Wrestling title. It's going to be great, guys. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be even funner because we're going to be there. Do you have anything you want to say about it, Michelle? The other thing, we talked about this briefly just recently because we started digging into some of our overall statistics and metrics and things for the podcast since we launched a few months back. And here's the thing. Big shout out, Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina, or Mexico City. If you're listening to We Watch Shudder in one of those areas, drop us a line on the Facebook page. We have a surprisingly high number of listens out of all of our overall listens coming from the Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina area. Apex, I'm looking at you. Who are you in Apex, North Carolina, in the Raleigh, Durham metro who's listening to our podcast? Find us on Facebook. Let us know. There's at least one, maybe two or three of you down in Mexico City. We see you. We love you. Tell us who you are. Drop us a line. And wherever you're listening, say hello. We would love to know who's listening to our show. Drop us a line on our Facebook page. It's just We Watch Shudder. It's really easy to find. Did I get it right, Michelle? Oh, what else do we have? We have an Instagram too, right?
We have an Instagram for sure.
Is it just also We Watch Shudder?
Yes. All one word.
Michelle
phrase,
has just
whatever.
completely tuned out. She's gone full research mode already. It's impossible to get her back once she goes this level.
I am gone because I'm like, oh God, I didn't realize.
She's like,
the
I gotta go down this rabbit hole immediately. Fine.
I have
guys,
so many tabs open. I'm sorry.
We'll talk to you again next week. Say goodnight, Michelle.
Good night, Michelle.